Today we will be looking at mentor texts in the writing classroom. So students who deeply understand and connect to print-based resources will more readily be able to apply those elements as writers. In this presentation, we will look at the effectiveness of using mentor texts to discuss and model writing strategies, skills, and traits. So first, what are mentor texts? When we consider the purpose of texts, they are the glue that binds reading and writing processes together. So when considering the characteristics of a mentor text, we want to be cautious that we are not just choosing text from a list of books or resources that might support a specific strategy, but keeping an open mind to those texts that we have an intimate knowledge of. They should be resources that serve as co-teachers. And by this, if a teacher is presenting a certain reading skill or writing skill or a mini lesson about writing, that these resources or texts actually serve to support what that teacher is demonstrating and discussing. They should be exemplary examples of specific writing traits. They should be loved and filled with inspiration, ones that the students and the teachers have connected to. And as stated before, they are texts that have been experienced deeply as a reader. They are not superficial. They are not texts that students have had limited experiences with, but rather they are ones that they know deeply, and they are used to consider the writer's choices and why each choice was made. So what is the connection or the link between reading and writing, and how do mentor texts support this connection? Consider this quote: "The ability to find good writing and identify what makes it effective will carry students through their education and is the momentum that moves writers forward." So let's look at the relationship between the two. So in reading, when you are reading a big book, perhaps in lower elementary, or as students might be exploring written text and print themselves, how do they notice the conventions? How is the print displayed? How is stress shown through the print? As students notice conventions in reading, they will begin to incorporate those conventions into their own writing. How does a student connect to tone and voice and pacing? How in turn will then they be able to express themselves in writing when they notice how a writer helps them to connect to a text that they have read? As students encounter new words and they latch on to the power that can be conveyed through new words, they will then begin to incorporate this powerful language into their own writing. So how does mentor texts affect the writing process, or how can we use mentor texts to support the writing process? When looking at the writing process, we consider how writers craft their writing. Mentor texts allow students to consider the writer's process in developing the text. By looking at a completed or finished piece of writing, they can kind of go back in their mind and consider how the writer got to that place. It provides opportunities for planning and brainstorming as we read many texts on a single topic, theme, genre, author. We can use these tools and resources to plan and brainstorm for our own writing. There's opportunities to discuss how writers plan, revise, and edit towards a final product. And as students are in process, they can mine these mentor texts for examples of how they can improve their own writing. So for example, in writing conferences, if you're sitting with a student who's struggling with a strong conclusion or a hook and an opening, how can we bring them back to those texts that they have connected to see how authors effectively use openings and conclusion, and how then can they bring some of those elements into their own writing. So mentor texts are often used in the general classroom, and they both elevate more proficient writers to bring their writing to the next step. But how can we also reach reluctant readers and writers? As Moser said, a strategy that was overwhelming and inaccessible when presented from a text the student knows and understands is suddenly doable. This is really important for reluctant readers and writers who often feel frustrated by this process, who lack a sense of confidence and self-esteem when it comes to how they view themselves as writers. So how do we increase confidence and motivation for reluctant readers and writers? Well, when books are accessible and easily understood, then those books are ones that the students can really latch on to. They're ones that they feel that they can understand, that they can read, and it increases their confidence with really understanding themes and ideas. In turn, they're able to offer their ideas and discuss these with an eagerness. It becomes a more low-risk opportunity and environment. And then once they are able to discuss and offer their ideas, then that confidence then in turn builds some inspiration for applying those elements in their personal writing. So in conclusion, writers who explore and identify good writing, they take risks in applying these features. That applies to both more proficient writers and those who are more reluctant or struggle more deeply. Close reading develops deeper understanding and insights. This harkens back to that first idea that we explored about knowing a text intimately. As we explore it more in more than one opportunity through more than one perspective, we really get to understand it. And when we write, we have to attend to it, and it requires close reading. We read our writing back. We consider the audience. We consider our message. Are we conveying what we want? As Callum suggests, writing and reading are a 1-2 punch. When we work on one, we naturally work on the other. So in turn, we must provide many opportunities for students to connect the two in our classrooms, and mentor texts are an ideal way in which to do that. Helping readers know books intimately, as you would a best friend, helps them notice and connect to how a book is assembled, and not only how a text comes to be, but why. So when using mentor texts, consider the reading opportunities and the writing opportunities.